Welcome to episode 14 of the Stitch Create Love podcast. My name is Lindsay and I'm coming to you from Cheshire in the northwest of the UK, where I live with my husband and our 5-year-old daughter. You can find me on Instagram and Etsy and Ravelry as Stitch Create Love, and I will pop links to all of those places in the description box below, as well as some details on the screen somewhere here. So if you are a returning viewer, welcome back. I hope you're well. It has been a few weeks, maybe 4 weeks since my last episode. I hope that you are keeping safe and well, particularly here in the UK. I know that things are very confusing and stressful, and there are lots of confusing restrictions in place around COVID at the moment, and I think people are definitely feeling stressed and anxious with all the uncertainty that's around. I know that I have found that my crafting has really helped me to kind of calm down and relax a little bit in the circumstances that we are currently living in. So I hope that yours is providing you some comfort too, wherever you are in the world. And if you are a new viewer, then welcome. It's lovely to have you with me. I have had a few new subscribers again since the last episode, so yeah, welcome along. It's lovely to have you here. You will find a crafty podcast here with lots of chat. I do like to talk. If there's one word, I'll use 10. And also you will find some tutorials and things here. So it has been a few weeks since my last episode, and in the last episode I said I was doing a shorter episode because I wanted to try and film more often, and that didn't happen, did it? But what has happened is that things have changed a little bit for me in terms of my crafting and my professional crafting, in the sense of my pattern design and my personal crafting. So the way that I'm doing my crafting is changing. I'm actually doing a lot more crafting than I was doing before because of the pattern designing, and also having opened the Etsy shop throughout the summer. But the line between what's my personal crafting and what is my professional crafting is definitely blurred, which I'm really enjoying and I love. But what I'm finding is that it's meaning I'm not getting through projects as quickly as I normally would. And so what that's done is it's caused me to have a little think about a few changes that I am going to make to the podcast going forward. Now, since I started podcasting in January, I have always kind of kept to the structure of finished objects, works in progress, plans of what I would like to do, and then maybe I've done a bit of sharing the love or showing you some of the things that I've purchased, and we've had a little bit of a chat about various things at the end. But part of the reason that I haven't filmed between this episode and last episode is because I haven't got anything finished particularly to show you. And the finished things that I do tend to have more regularly, I'm finding, are pattern designs. They're samples for pattern designs, and I'm really conscious that I don't just want this podcast to become a shop window and a sales pitch for me to sell my patterns or whatever else I may produce in terms of products to all of you. Obviously that's part of this, and I'm going to mention it because it's part of my crafting, but I don't just want this to become the, I want to sell you all my stuff podcast. So what I've decided to do is to change it a little bit. I do have a lot of projects on the go at the moment, and so to talk about all of the projects that I have on the go in every episode is not particularly feasible. So rather than having, as I've had before, finished objects, works in progress, plans, what I'm going to do is I'm going to have a project section where I talk to you about a selection of projects that I'm working on, which may have a common theme, or which I may be enjoying for a particular reason, or which I might have learnt from, things that I kind of feel that I want to share with you, and that I hope will inspire you in your crafting as well. And that may be knitting, it may be sewing, it may be crochet, it may be cross stitch, it may be embroidery. It'll be a bit of a mixed bag, as has always been the case with the projects that I work on. So I'm going to have a projects section. I would quite like to give these sections names, but we'll see how we go, rather than just projects, but we'll see what happens. Maybe in editing I will come up with a bright idea. Then I want to have a news or a kind of an interesting things section. Again, I need to come up with a better name for that section. But what I want to do is I want to be able to share my news in terms of my business, my news in terms of what's going on in my life, but also news from the crafting community. So maybe, you know, if there are new podcasts that I've been listening to, or if there are magazines or books or things like that that I've found particularly interesting within kind of the crafting, or under the crafting umbrella, if you like, then I'm going to share those in that section. And what I thought was that it would be a really nice way for me to share other people within the community. So if you are a podcaster, or if you are a writer, or if you are a yarn dyer, or if you are a small business and you have something that you are setting up, or that has been set up for a long time, and you feel that, you know, you have something that you would like to maybe share with people out there, then let me know. Get in touch with me, let me know, and I'll have a little look and see what you're up to, and give people a mention. I suppose I've kind of partly got the idea from Dawn, who I mentioned in the last episode. Dawn has a YouTube channel, Dawn's Days, and she does weekly vlogs and craft podcasts. And she always says, if you're a small business, let me know who you are, and I will put, I think she has a sticker or a badge or something that she has behind her on a board when she does her podcast, and she kind of shares the love within the community. So I would like to be able to do that. Then I'm going to have a section which has been inspired again by all of you. And for today, I'm going to call it the Ask Me a Question section. Now, I suppose technically you could ask me anything, but I'm thinking that you're going to ask me things about crafting, because I've been very clear from when I first started podcasting, and particularly when I've been designing my patterns and my sewing kits, that I really want to share knowledge and skills with all of you to help make your crafting better and easier. So that's one of my main motivations in what I do, you know, in terms of my business and in terms of the personal side of my crafting and the personal crafting that I share on this channel. And this has been inspired really by a lovely lady called Tracy, who I'm sure won't mind me mentioning her name, but she has been in touch with me on Instagram, and she was asking about socks, because she is a new sock knitter and is looking forward to trying my new pattern, which I'm going to talk about a little bit later. And she said it would be really helpful if I could talk about the different kind of sock knitting methods, the different needles you can use. Now, I am by no means a sock knitting expert, but I can certainly share the experiences that I have had and the things that I have found with all of you, and maybe that will help you to navigate things. So my Ask a Question section today is going to be focused on socks, because that's what Tracy's particularly asked me. But if there is anything that you would like to know, and remember, you know, I have taught sewing and dressmaking and lots of different crafting. So if there is a question that you would like me to answer, or is there a technique that you would like me to kind of address, let me know and I will talk about that. I'm not envisaging that it's going to be a full-on tutorial. This is just a kind of a chatty answer to a question as part of the podcast. And if something else comes out of that requires a tutorial, then I may be able to do that for you. So that's going to be Ask a Question. And then the last section is going to be, I don't know, chat, anything else. So it's going to be giveaways, make-alongs, anything else that kind of isn't covered within the podcast proper. So I hope that that is going to be okay for everybody. I'm thinking that this will make me podcast more regularly. I'm thinking that it will probably change the length of the podcast. I had a lot of people saying last time, which was very, very nice and very, very kind of you, that they didn't actually like the shorter podcast. So it may be that this podcast becomes a bit longer in length, which is fine if the content is there and if it's interesting and if you want to continue to watch it. So I am open to feedback on this. Let me know what you think about the new format. Obviously, you're still going to get me, and I'm still going to be the same. I'm still going to talk a lot. I'm still going to ramble on. I'm still going to cast on too many things. I'm still going to think that things are going to take me less time than they actually do. So yeah, you're still going to get all the kind of rambly, unprofessional business that you get as part of the podcast with me anyway, but that's how it's going to work. I'm going to have a project section. I'm going to have a news / interesting things section with a focus on the crafting community, really. Ask me a question, and then a kind of a chatty section that things will be in if they don't fit in anything else. Now, I've noticed, because I film with my forward facing camera, and I've noticed that, look, it keeps kind of going in and out of focus. I don't know why that is. I film on my phone, and I have filmed in here, which is my kitchen, and I have filmed in the other room as well. I kind of feel that at this time of year the light in here is better. Yeah, so we'll see how it goes, but I would like to work on a better setup for the podcast, actually, because at the moment you have a lovely messy shelf here. This is where all my kind of project bags and whips are living at the moment, which is handy for podcasting because I can just pull them out. But anyway, I'm rambling already, and I've already been talking for 10 minutes. Okay, so last thing I promise, before I get into the project section of the podcast, I just wanted to say a really, really big thank you to everybody that has purchased a copy of my cowl pattern, the Dance Like No One's Watching cowl, which was released, I think, is it 4 weeks ago, something like that. And I didn't expect it to be as successful as it has been. I'm gonna waffle here. Obviously, when you design a pattern, you have a not so much an expectation, but you have a wish that it is going to be successful because you've put a lot of time and effort into it, and it's something that you've created, it's something very personal, and it's something that you're proud of, and you hope that everybody will like it too. And that, you know, you wouldn't be doing it and you wouldn't be designing it if you didn't think that it was going to be something that people were interested in. So in that sense, I suppose you could say I expected it to go well. However, I didn't expect as many people to purchase a copy of that pattern as have done. And it was very, very popular when it was first released, but it's been really nice to see people continuing to purchase and share what they're making as it's been out there really during the lifetime of the pattern. So thank you so much to everybody that has done that. I do feel with the pattern designing that I have found a place for myself and my business within the crafting community that works for me in terms of the time that I'm able to put into it and the kind of return that I'm able to get from that in terms of the interaction with you. And, you know, let's be honest, I'm making an income out of it. It's not a massive income, but there is an income there, it's a sustainable thing for me to be able to continue doing this. But I couldn't do that without any of you. So thank you so much to everybody that has purchased a copy of that pattern. My next pattern is going to be released tomorrow, which could be today or in the past if you're watching this. It's going to be released on Friday the 23rd of October. I will pop a picture on the screen here. It is the Flight of the Bumblebee socks. I'm not going to go on about it too much because I have spoken about them before, except to say that it's a sock pattern. It's a sock pattern that I have written in great detail. I have given you the clearest possible instructions that I think I can give to you. I have given instructions for a toe-up construction and a cuff-down construction so that you can try both. I've used a heel that I think is the simplest, also giving the best fit, and I have filmed a tutorial for this channel that shows you how to work that heel. The pattern is written for magic loop, but you could easily adapt it for using with DPNs or short circular needles. If you don't know what I'm talking about, then I'm going to address that in the Ask Me a Question section today. So yeah, it's going to be out tomorrow. Again, you know, I wouldn't have done it if I didn't have some kind of hope that it was going to be successful. But yeah, if it's anywhere near as successful as the last pattern, then it will be absolutely wonderful, and I will be incredibly happy to see all of your socks. Yeah, so that's going to be out on Friday the 23rd of October. Right, let's stop rambling and let's get on with the projects section. Okay, so projects. So today I thought I would do a little bit of a focus on garments or things that we wear that are not socks, basically, or gloves. So garments and shawls. So a lot of people I know would really love to knit more garments, and there tend to be a few issues with this. Patterns are not very clear. People don't understand the construction methods. It takes a long time. It takes a lot of yarn. It costs a lot of money. And I've had all of those things. Now you will know, excuse me, if you've watched the podcast before, that I made the Whitmore sweater earlier this year, which I absolutely loved. And it was the first garment that I had made, and I made it in an acrylic yarn. And a lot of people have said that they're really, happy that I shared the fact that I made something in an acrylic yarn. The reason I did that is because it was affordable for me, and if it went wrong, it wouldn't have been the end of the world. As my confidence is growing with my knitting, I am kind of branching out into using natural fibres, which I am more comfortable with now, because I've kind of tried that. Having said that, I wear my Whitmore sweater all the time and I absolutely love it. And this is a conversation for another day. But oh, now the sun's come out, I might have to move. This is a conversation for another day, but there is definitely a place for me for acrylic yarn and natural fibres, commercial yarn and indie hand-dyed yarn within all of our crafting. So right, I stopped recording there because the sun was like streaming into my face. We'll see how we get on. Okay, so I would like to wear more natural fibres because, wool has properties of keeping us warm and cosy, and I'm somebody that always feels the cold, but of course, you've got different kinds of wool. You've got, you've got alpaca, you've got merino, you've got BFL, and then you've got things like linen and cotton and silk and all these other things. So I wanted to be able to wear more natural fibres, and so my starting point for that was to have a go at knitting a shawl. And I did show you last time that I think it was last time I showed you, that I had just cast on the Molten Shawl, which is a pattern by Libby Jonson, who is truly myrtle. I haven't printed out a picture of the shawl, so I'll pop it up on the screen for you. But let me just see if I can show you. Yeah, here we go. So it's a triangular shaped shawl, and this is all garter stitch here, and then you have a lace section here, and then it's got an I-cord bind off, which I'm mildly terrified of doing, but I'm going to have a go at it. So last time I think I'd only worked a couple of colours on the garter section, so I'm going to show you where I am up to now. So I always find, and now I've dropped my row counter on the floor, I always find with shawls it's really hard to kind of hold them up for you to be able to see them when you're knitting them, because they're kind of the wrong shape. So anyway, this is my garter section here, so you can see the triangular shape there. I'm not going to be able to show you this properly, so I will attempt to just talk you through each section. So I had some minis. I had 100% merino minis, 20 gram minis that I had bought on eBay a while ago, and I'm terrible for buying yarn and it just sitting there and me being frightened to use it. But I thought, no, I'm going to use it. So it's supposed to be a 2-skein shawl, but I had enough minis to have the garter section in the minis and then to do the lace section in another colour. So this is the first colour that I used. It is coming out a little bit more, it's coming out more red there. It is a very, very pinky red. Let me see if I can move it back a little bit and get a better sense for you. So that's the first one, which was a more of a solid colour. Then this was the next one, which has a few more kind of variegated tones in it. Then this one, that's actually coming out quite well on there. That's a good reflection of the colour. And between your garter sections, you've got little stocking stitch, bands as well. And then we went into this really nice paler pink and then a purple one here. And now I am on the lace section. and I'm using loads of markers because the pattern doesn't tell you where to place your markers, but I'm just placing it after every repeat basically. And the yarn that I am using for the lace is this one, which is called Kiss Chase, and it is a yarn which was dyed by Little French Meadow, who are no longer dyeing anymore. But it's just, I kind of felt like, oh, that's nice, isn't it? I felt like it was a really nice way of drawing all of the other colours that I'd already used together. So I think the lace section is about 30 odd rows, and I've done about half of them because I've done 16 rows. It does require quite a lot of concentration. Quite often with lace, on every other row, you'll just purl. On this, it's a little bit more complicated than that, but not so much more complicated that, you know, your every other row is actually quite a nice row. But it is quite easy to remember. Once you've started your lace row, your actual repeat is quite easy to remember. And I have really enjoyed knitting that. And I said last time, I don't know why I'd never knitted one of Libby's patterns before, but that is the Molten Shawl, which is a paid for pattern on Ravelry, and it's available also as part of the One Ocean collection, which is an ebook that Libby did with, I don't recall the lady's name, is it Marie from Pacifico Knits? Anyway, so you can get a lot more patterns as part of that if you want to. So I'm really enjoying that. The garter section came together really quickly because, as you would expect, it is just, you know, knit. So that was really good television knitting. And obviously now that I'm on the lace, it is a little bit slower, and I'm trying to knit it a bit more slowly and treat it as a bit more of a mindful knit, because I think sometimes it's very easy to, I've just made a complete mess of this. I think sometimes it's very easy to just rush through a project and not really not enjoy it quite so much, because you're just kind of waiting to get to the end product. Right, I'm just putting this back together. So as a result of this, I thought, well, I've got quite a lot of single skeins that I could use and put together to be 2 skein projects. So I decided, and I think I mentioned this again in the last episode, that I was going to have a go at the Siren Song Shawl, which is also one of Libby's patterns, and it's in one of these 2 bags, and I can't remember which. So let's have a look. Yeah, so I haven't cast it on, but I am going to be making the Siren Song Shawl, which again, I don't have a picture of printed off. I have a black and white printer, so I don't see the point in printing off a picture because it's not in colour. So I'll pop a picture on the screen here for you to see the Siren Song Shawl. But again, if I just show you, it's another triangular shawl, but I think you're starting here this time, and it has got a beautiful, I will put a picture on the screen so you can see it, a beautiful slip stitch pattern here, and then it's got a really nice lace section which uses drop stitches and things, I think. The reason that I am making this is because I watched Paula, who is Stitched by Mrs. D, and she was making the Siren Song Shawl, and I thought, oh yeah, I quite fancy that, and then ended up going down a whole other truly metal rabbit hole. But anyways, I'm going to show you the yarns that I'm going to use for that. So I got these from Mr. V Yarns. Oh, look at that. I've got bits of something or other on there. Terrible. Okay, so this one is Scuba, and this one is Merlin, which I thought went really nicely with it. And you can see you've got the speckles in the Merlin that tones with the Scuba. I know Scuba is definitely still available. I don't know whether Merlin is, but I thought they would be really nice together. And blue is one of my favourite colours, and this kind of turquoisey shade I think is lovely. So I am going to be casting on the Siren Song Shawl in those, but what I've decided is that I need to get that molten finished, or at least get the lace finished, and only have the I-cord bind off to do before I cast this on. So that is going to be my next shawl project. And as I said, I've really enjoyed knitting Libby's patterns. And Libby also has a membership program which is called Wardrobe Toolbox. Now, she only opens up memberships every 6 months, so you can't currently join. I think you'll be able to join again in March, but it's around about £10 a month. The reason I say it's around about £10 a month is because all the pricing is done in New Zealand dollars, because that's where Libby's from. So it's about £10 a month, and it's called Wardrobe Toolbox, and it's basically a program that she has put together where she does lessons and tutorials and she does masterclasses from guests, and it shows you how to kind of develop your own style, and as well as kind of developing your knitting. So Libby does most of the technical stuff. So for example, this month's lessons were all about lace, which has been absolutely fantastic. She showed you how to rip back a particular section so that if you've gone wrong 10 rows below, you can go back and put it right. I mean, that's just amazing, isn't it, as lace. But one of the things that she talked about a lot was the sizing of garments. And sorry, I had to stop recording there because the sun got ridiculous again, and I can't even remember what I was rabbiting on about. So I was talking about Wardrobe Toolbox and saying that the patterns that are available or that come with that will all, I think, eventually be available for you to buy. You can get some of them already. Libby's Ravelry store will have everything that's available in it. Oh, excuse me, I just had a big slurp of my tea while I was not recording. Anyway, get to the point. So one of the things that she talked about a lot was sizing of garments and swatching for garments. Now, I've spoken on here before, I don't swatch, I don't have time to swatch, I can't be doing with it. However, because I am now using fibres that are, you know, natural fibres and will react very differently after blocking, I did decide to do some swatching, but I also decided to swatch in some acrylic yarn, which was very interesting. I'm going to get the project out to show you while I talk about all of this. So what I wanted was, I wanted a really simple garment that I could just sit and basically knit round and round and round and round while I'm watching the television, or on a Thursday evening I am part of a Zoom chat and I wanted something that I could just knit on, because I've been a few times I go every week, but a few weeks out of the many weeks that I've been going, I've been trying to knit something that I think is suitable. Look, I feel really bad because I shouldn't be complaining about the sun, but maybe I should move over here and have a huge... The thing is, we've got Velux windows in here, and so yeah, shall I do that? Sorry if this is just causing you offence. Anyway, I've taken a project to these Zoom meetings a couple of times that I have thought is suitable, that I'm going to be able to work on and chat, and what I end up doing is having to focus so much on the project that I'm working on that I can't join in with all of the chat. So I wanted something that was simple that I could do that with. And because I'd enjoyed the shawl patterns and I've heard really good things about how Libby's patterns are written, oh, this light is awful, isn't it? I decided that I was going to have a go at one of her garment patterns. So I had a look and I thought I would try the Gingerbread Sweater. And again, I will pop a picture up on the screen here for you to see, because I haven't printed a picture of the sweater out. But it's basically, here we go, let's have a look. See if I can show you the drawing. So it's basically all done in stocking stitch, and it has a little bit of lace detail on the cuffs and the hem. I was going to say the waistband, but that's not right, is it? On the cuffs and the hem. I'm going to carry on talking and I'm going to put something over the screen to get rid of this glare, otherwise I'm never going to get to the end of this podcast. So I decided, because I do have quite a lot of acrylic yarn, that I was going to have a go at this in acrylic yarn. And this is Aldi acrylic yarn, which is that sort of colour rather than that sort of colour. What colour is it called? Terracotta. So it's just a DK acrylic yarn. And I thought, do you know what? I'm going to try swatching this and I'm going to see how I get on. The needles that the pattern suggests using are 4mm needles. But when I swatched, I've ended up using 5mm needles. Now, isn't that interesting? I don't know whether that is because it's an acrylic yarn, or I don't know whether that's just because the composition, the fibre content of the yarn that Libby used to knit the sample was different, but I just found it really, really interesting that I have had to go up to the larger needle size. Now, would that mean that I'm a loose knitter or a tight knitter? Because I thought I was quite a loose knitter. Not a really, really loose knitter, but that would mean that I'm a tighter knitter, wouldn't it? Anyway, so I've cast it on, and what you do is you cast on the back. So you cast on for the back shoulders first, then you join the shoulders and you knit so far down at the back, then you put that away on some waste yarn, and then you cast on the front shoulders and kind of do the same thing, and then you join in the round. So which is my front? I think that's my front, isn't it? And which is my back? Again, this sun is hideously bad. So you can see I have got quite far. It's going to have a set-in sleeve, and I've got two underneath the armholes there. And it's really nice because my instruction in the pattern now is just to continue knitting. What if I go over here? Is that any better? No. It's just to continue knitting around and around and around until I get to a certain length. So that is just great as tele knitting. I did actually contemplate sitting here and knitting on it while I'm talking to you, but yeah, maybe that's for another day. But what I wanted to say about this is I had a massive whinge a few episodes ago about how sweater patterns or garment patterns did not give you proper instructions for separating for the sleeves. And I had a big whinge because basically, without going into too much detail, but when you cast on your underarm stitches using a cable cast on, I had done it in a pattern where you had to cast on your underarm stitches using a cable cast on, and you have to turn your work. And patterns don't tell you to do that, or they don't tell you which cast on method to use for your underarm stitches, and then you don't know which. Anyway, so this was fantastic because when you are casting on more stitches using a cable cast on, she tells you to turn your work. So honestly, that's just made my knitting life. I don't know what the expression is, but what I'm trying to say to you is, if you are somebody that wants to have a go at garment knitting and you want an instruction, a pattern which is really, really clear and gives you full instructions, full proper instructions, I would definitely 100% recommend Libby's patterns. This is not the only sweater pattern of hers that I've cast on. And yes, I'm supposed to be knitting my Zweig, which I'm going to talk about in a minute. But it's, yeah, the Whitmore sweater pattern is great. I love that pattern. However, I love these patterns too, and I would definitely recommend Libby's patterns. And I think just her whole kind of, the way she goes about things, she has podcasts which she does on Facebook, and you know, just, yeah, I really like the whole kind of Truly Myrtle brand and idea. So anyway, that's my gingerbread, and as I say, that is just, it's, do we call it vanilla knitting, where you just go round and round and round? So I anticipate me being able to get on with that fairly quickly, and it's also a really good way because I've been quite tired in the evenings. You know, I think we all get like that, don't we, when the seasons change. It's something that I can knit on if I'm feeling like I can't really concentrate very much. So that's my gingerbread that I have cast on. Now let's talk about the Zweig, which I will pop a picture of on the screen here while I'm talking, because I can't sit there because of this sunlight. So my Zweig is in the naughty corner. So I am running a knit along, the Time to Zweig knit along with Kathy from the Whatnot podcast, and I have really enjoyed seeing all your Zweigs. Kathy's Zweig looks really great, and she's nearly finished hers, and others of you have finished or are really getting on with it. I did see a post by Marie, who is Cozy Stitches, saying that she was a little bit frustrated with hers as well, so it's nice to know that I'm not the only one. Basically, I spoke about this last time, I'd got to the lace, and the lace section is something that does require quite a bit of concentration, and Kathy had said this on her podcast as well. And because I've been busy with pattern designing and getting myself into a new routine since Eloise has gone to school, I was finding it very difficult to have the time to sit down and concentrate on it. And I went back to it and I tried to do it, and I realised that I'd made a mistake in the lace, and so I had to rip the lace back. And having done that, what I'd kind of decided is that I don't think that I made the best yarn choice when it comes to my contrast yarn, because it's a beautiful yarn. Let's get it out and show you. It's a beautiful yarn. Where am I? Let's get it out. Let's get it out if I can find it. She says. Here we go. It is a beautiful yarn. It's by, oh my goodness, dear me. It's by Tracy, here we go, from Nora George, and it's 1906, and it is a beautiful, beautiful yarn. And it was beautiful in the skein, it's beautiful balled up. However, as a contrast with this, I just don't think it is enough of a contrast for the pattern that I had decided I was going to use it for. And I've thought about this. I thought I could just not mention it at all, or I could just pretend that I'm, getting on with it. But there's no point, is there? I need to be honest with you. So what I've decided is that I'm going to park my Zweig, because I don't want to knit a garment that I don't like, and I don't want to knit a garment in frustration, because I don't know about you, but I certainly think when you're working on a project, you knit memories and you knit feelings into that project, and I don't want the memories and the feelings behind my Zweig to be frustration and stress and all of those things. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to park it. I have got a pattern coming out tomorrow, and I've got another pattern which is out for testing that I will mention later. And I'm also in the process of designing another pattern. And once I've put those out, I think I'm probably going to have a little bit of a Christmas rest. And I think when I do that, I'm going to pick up my Zweig again and I'm going to have another go at it, because I will be in a better frame of mind to do that. So I feel terrible about it in many ways, because, I'm running this knit along and, but I think I need to be honest about it. And I know I'm not the only one that's got a little bit frustrated with it. And it doesn't take away from the fact that everybody else who's joined in the knit along has done a fantastic job. And I will still be drawing a prize, and Kathy will still be drawing a prize. And it's been lovely to see everybody else's sweaters. And, I made sure that I went on to Ravelry this week and I had a look at how people have got on. So it has been lovely to see that. And it has developed and kind of encouraged that sense of community, which is what I think Kathy and I wanted from it. So I feel a little bit like I'm letting the side down, but I think it's important to be honest. And I think, if I come on here and just pretend that everything is lovely and wonderful and that it's all perfect, then it's only going to make everybody else feel bad, because it's not like that. So your knitting's not going to be like that, is it? And we fall out of love with things, and as I say, I am going to do it and I am going to enjoy it, but just not at the moment, because I've got far too many other things going on, and I think I just needed something a bit simpler to knit on, really. So that's the tale of my Zweig. Sorry. However, I am working on another sweater. My Truly Myrtle obsession continues, and I have cast on the Georgie Sweater, which I will pop a picture up on the screen, and I will show you the little drawing of that. Hopefully you can see that. So it's a sweater, it's quite an oversized boxy sweater, and it has some very simple lace on here, and then it's I think it's a stockinette or a stocking stitch sleeve, and it has a cuff as well. And I decided to have a go at this because the yarn that had been used in the sample that was knitted, which is there's a lovely photograph on Ravelry of it. It's in a really beautiful grey colour. The meterage of that yarn was 167 metres per 50 grams. And I have oodles of baby alpaca silk, which I love. So this is my Zweig yarn, but I've got loads of it. So I have got enough to do more than one thing in it. So this baby alpaca silk, which is a drops yarn, and I have shown you this before. This was a birthday gift from my husband. So this is 50 grams and it's 167 meters per 50 grams. And I thought, do you know what? I'm going to have a go at the Georgie in this, because I think it's nice, isn't it, to kind of layer things up during the winter. So I haven't got as far on this as I have with the gingerbread. It looks to me to be a very similar construction. So this is the back, and then you will join in the round, and I'll show you how far I've got. Is this the right way around? Row counters. I should have a better way of working. I don't know if you can see because of the sun. Maybe I'll take a photograph and pop it in for you. But actually, if I hold it there, you can kind of see what it's going to look like on, and I think that's just really, really lovely. It's so soft and it's so cozy. And again, I've been through the whole kind of swatching process, and the pattern recommends 3.5mm needles, and I've ended up using 3.75mm needles, and I just wanted to have a little word about that. So these are, what are they? They are Knit Pro Symphony. Now, I ordered these a while ago. I think I ordered them for my Zweig and then ended up using something else. So I thought, well, I'll have a go on these. And do you know what? I really, really love these. I think they're so smooth. I know a lot of people have said that the problem with these is that the size wears off them, and you can see, you won't be able to see it at all, but on here it has already started to wear off slightly. But I know I've only got one pair at the moment, and I know what size these are because of the project that I'm working on them with, and they're just lovely because they are as smooth to me as using the pony aluminium needles. So I am really enjoying working with them. The only thing I would say about this is because of the way that the lace is done, which is, it's not complicated. It's not even fiddly, to be honest. It just takes a little bit of time. If I knit on it for a long time, it does tend to make my hands hurt a little bit. So I'm having to do that in short bursts, but I'm really enjoying it, and I'm really looking forward to having a sweater, that I can wear. And that will be the first, I was going to say it's going to be the first fingering weight sweater. No, it won't. It's a sport weight. But it's not DK, so I'm kind of coming down in my yarn weights, basically. The other thing that I'm going to show you as part of my projects is, it's not a pattern, it's not available at the moment because this is one of the Wardrobe Toolbox patterns, but I wanted to show it you to be able to talk about the technique that's involved. So this is the Medley Shawl, which is available as part of Wardrobe Toolbox, but I'm sure it will be made available at some point to everybody. And I'm using Drops Flora to knit it in. It's a three skein shawl, and these are 50 gram balls. So I've got 2 balls of this, 2 balls of this, and then 2 balls of this. So that's going to be my colours together. I think I've got a bit of an obsession with this colour, haven't I? But what I just wanted to show you was this. Now, you would think, wouldn't you, that you had spent hours doing colour work. It's all slip stitches, and I wanted to show you that because I've not tried this before. Is this called mosaic knitting? I don't know whether it is, but basically when you do colour work using slip stitches, what happens is you've only ever got one colour on each row. So on this, for example, you work a right side row in colour A, which is this one, and then you work a wrong side row in colour A, and then you get back and then you do the same in colour B. So you don't have lots of ends to weave in, and because you just keep kind of, you know, not twisting them together, but you move one across while you work on the other one. And I just think the effect that you get is fantastic. And also because you're slipping a lot of stitches, it's really fast. So this hasn't taken me very long to do at all. And I just think the effect that you get is fantastic. I will show you just so that you can see this. There is a Ravelry listing for this, but unfortunately you can't get the pattern unless you are a Wardrobe Toolbox member. But I just want to show you what it's going to look like, because I am given to understand that these patterns are all going to be available eventually. And now I can't find it. Do you know what? I'm going to just pop a picture on the screen, I think, because I can't find the little drawing that shows us what it's going to look like. No, I don't know what I've done with it. I'll pop a picture on the screen. So that's the Medley Shawl, and again, it's a Libby Jonson Truly Myrtle pattern. But I just kind of wanted to mention the yarn as well. So this, I'm sure you all know, drops. It's a very affordable commercial yarn. This is a fingering weight yarn, and it's, what is it? It's 65% wool and 35% alpaca. Really, really lovely. And I'm really enjoying working with it. So yeah, that is a Christmas gift. And I'm not going to say who for, in case they're watching. But I just wanted to mention the technique, because I know that that is the technique that is used in quite a few of Libby's patterns. And the Floozy cardigan, or the Floozy 2, which is the sweater version of the same pattern, I think is probably her most popular and well-known pattern, and that is the kind of the same sort of technique that is used in there. So that is my Medley Shawl. And then I'm just going to show you one more thing as part of this section, which is I am going to have a go at knitting the Maiden Sweater, which is another Truly Myrtle pattern, and it is available, I think it's available as part of Wardrobe Toolbox, but I'm pretty sure this one is also available as a standalone pattern, so you can get hold of this one, and I'll pop a picture on the screen. And it's a very, very simple sweatshirt type, sweater type jumper. And you can see, if I've popped the picture up here, that it's all over one colour, and then it has some contrast colours around the neck and the cuff. And I have got some of this Drops Baby Merino to have a go at it in, and I will be swatching. This was, I don't know whether it still is, I think it was 30% off on Wool Warehouse. So I have got olive as my main colour. That's not coming out very well. Oh, look at that. Ooh. Olive, and then for my contrast colours, for the bottom colour I'm going to have this one, which is, what's that called? I don't know. Beige, I think it was called, and this is lime. So it's going to be this one, the beige on the bottom, then the lime, and then the olive as the all over. And that is really, really soft. It's 100% wool, and it's a baby merino, so it's really soft. So again, that wasn't very expensive. And before all of you indie dyers or supporter of indie dyers out there worry that I am no longer buying indie yarn, that is not true, because I love it, and that is what I'm using to design all of my socks in. And I have also got shawls planned, and yeah, so was there anything else I was going to show you? No, as part of my projects section. So I hope that was not too sort of messy and incoherent. And now let's move on to the news/interesting things section. Okay, so news section, not going to be massively long. However, I've got a new pattern. I've got a new pattern coming out tomorrow, but I've got another pattern that is out for testing, which I'm going to show you. And then I've also got a bit of sharing the love to do as part of this section. So, in fact, what I will do is the pattern that is coming out tomorrow, the Fly to the Bumblebee socks, which I will pop a picture of on the screen. I just wanted to say that I used a sock set by Helen at Giddy Yarns, a dandelion sock set. And this is the dandelion colourway, and that is all I have left from a 50 gram, and then I used contrast heel toes and cuffs in the green that came with it, and that's all I have left from a 20 gram. So it takes about 70 grams of fingering weight yarn. So Helen has lots of lovely colours. I don't think she, excuse me, currently has that one in stock, but she does have lots of lovely colours, and she's a very talented dyer, so go and check her out. My new pattern, or my next new pattern, my pattern that is currently out for testing, I'm going to pop a picture up here again. And these are the seasonal fruits socks. And the inspiration for these came from a skein of yarn that I ordered a little while ago from Mr. and Mrs. Rabbit Yarns. And if you look at this, then you can kind of, I hope you can see, what I thought of when I looked at this was peaches and cream. The skein was actually called Paint Box Garden, but it just made me think of peaches and cream, and I thought, wouldn't it be nice if I could have a pattern that had kind of, you know, little peaches up the front, and so that's kind of where the design was born, really, where it came from. And if you have watched the tutorials that I've put up recently, which I'll talk about in a minute, these are the socks that I was knitting on when I was doing those tutorials. So let me just see if I can show you the stitch pattern down the front. So can you see you've got, these are the little peaches here, and these are not proper cables, they're mock cables. There is a special stitch that you do called a twist stitch, which there will be a tutorial for that comes as part of the pattern. And then here, I thought this was really nice because it looks a little bit, oh, now the light's gone completely wrong. It looks a little bit like basket weave, and I thought it just kind of looked like fruit in a basket. Now, I did design these with peaches and cream in mind, but depending on the yarn colour that you use, you could call them plums, apples, cherries, strawberries, and actually one of my test knitters has actually done it in a red and white and green colour combination, and it reminds me of Christmas baubles. So they will be out in November, probably mid to late November. And the contrast mini that I've used for those is a mini by Wild Rose Yarn. So yeah, those are the seasonal fruits socks. And as I said, there will be a tutorial to go with those as part of the pattern. But other news is that I have put out a couple of tutorials, or actually 3 tutorials, I think, on this channel since my last episode. So the first one is how to cast on toe-up socks. And that's the cast on that I use in my pattern, so I've popped that up there for you. Another one is how to knit a German short row heel. I love German short rows. I cannot do wrap and turns. I end up with holes in my work, so I love German short rows. So I've done a video for that. And I've also done a video which shows you how to close the gap between your heel and your sock so that you don't end up with massive holes at the side. But if you do, you can just fix it later by using some yarn and a tapestry needle or a darning needle. So yeah, I've put the toe cast on, the heel and the closing the gap tutorials up on this channel because they're not specific techniques to an individual pattern, and neither are they, you know, they're not my idea necessarily. They're just a way that it's a method of heel knitting or a method of casting on, in the same way that when I put the Estonian cast on video up, it's just a way of casting on. The stitch that you use to make the little peaches is specific to this pattern, and so that's why I've decided to do that tutorial as part of that pattern. But I would really love to do some more tutorials going forward, knitting and possibly sewing as well. So if you do have ideas of things that you would like to see, then let me know. One thing that I am thinking of doing is I knit my socks 2 at a time. If I knit my socks 1 at a time, I would never end up with a pair of socks because that's just the way my brain works. So if anybody would be interested in a tutorial for how I cast on and work my 2 at a time socks, then I'll see if I can do that. Filming tutorials takes quite a long time, It takes a long time to film and it takes a long time to edit. It doesn't take a very long time to upload because they're shorter videos, but it's quite time heavy in terms of the filming and the editing. So they will not be as they won't be that quickly available, is what I'm trying to say. And then other news / interesting things. I wanted to do a bit of sharing the love for a dyer who I was not really aware of until fairly recently, and she's not long ago started a podcast. So Shannon from Blue Fern Yarns has started a podcast. I will link to her channel in the description box below, and she also has a website where she sells project bags that I don't think are made by her. I think she sells stitch marks and progress keepers. She has a few patterns and she does some beautiful yarn. She has 2 colourways. Now, one of them is called turmeric and one of them, I think, is it something to do with fog? Do you know, when I watch podcasts and people forget things, I'm like, how could you possibly do that? And I've just done it. Anyway, I'll pop a picture up on the screen. I think they go together so well. They would be beautiful in a shawl, and I can't possibly be casting on any more shawls at the moment, but yeah, they are great colourways. So yeah, she is a yarn dyer and she has some beautiful colourways, and I definitely will be trying some of her yarn at some point. But if you are looking for a new podcast or you are looking for a new dyer, then go and check Shannon out. She's actually quite impressive because she's a crocheter first, but she started learning to knit over lockdown. So she's only been knitting since March, and she's actually doing the Stephen West NCAL at the moment, the slip stravaganza. I don't think I'd be able to do that. And I've been knitting for like 2.5 years. So yeah, I am in awe of her doing that. She's clearly a very, very clever, very talented lady. So go and have a little look at Shannon's channel and at her website as well. So that is my news / interesting things section. So let's move on to the Ask Me a Question section, shall we? So this is going to be a bit of a potted version, but I wanted to just talk very briefly about sock knitting because I've been asked about specifically different needles and different methods of sock knitting. So I'm going to try and condense it as much as I can for you. So if you were to purchase one of my sock patterns, I give you instructions for both a toe up and a cuff down construction. And as the name suggests, if it's toe up, you cast on the toe and you knit all the way up to the top. And if it's a cuff down, you cast on the cuff and then you knit all the way down to the bottom. I don't necessarily think that any one method is better than the other. I think it's a personal preference. I prefer to knit toe up because ribbing, which is usually what you find on a cuff, takes quite a long time, and I just find that I get a little bit bored and it's a bit soul destroying because you don't feel like you're making very much progress very quickly. Whereas with toe up, the toe is quicker to knit for me than the cuff, plus it looks bigger. You've got fewer stitches, haven't you, at the end? That's why. It's purely a psychological thing and it's a personal preference, but I prefer toe up. But you know, there are loads of people that prefer cuff down. The reason I decided to include both sets of instructions in my patterns is because the first thing I tried was cuff down, and if I had only ever tried cuff down, then I wouldn't enjoy knitting socks. It was only because I tried toe up that I now absolutely love knitting socks, and for me it seems like it's just a much more pleasurable experience. So I wanted to include both in there so that you've got the opportunity to do both. Now, in terms of what needles you can use for knitting socks, I'm going to go and get some other needles to show you, and I will talk about that. Okay, note to self, be more prepared when explaining things to people. Right, I'm going to say that there are 3 different types of needle that you could use to knit your socks, and if somebody else knows a different way, that's fine. I'm not saying this is definitive, but these are the 3 main ways that I am aware of, and I think these are probably the 3 main ways that most other people are aware of. So first of all, you can use a circular needle. I knit mine 2 at a time, but you don't have to knit them 2 at a time. You can use a circular needle to knit individual socks, and this method is called the magic loop method. The reason being because let's just put these needles in the right place. when you knit across one part of your sock, so I'm due to knit across the back of my sock here, you will knit across with those stitches and you end up with a loop here, and you'll also end up with a loop here. So that's your magic loop, basically. I'm not going to go into, you know, the ins and outs of it. This is the method that I prefer to use for my socks. I find it the simplest, partly because you've only got 2 different sets of stitches. So I knit my socks using 64 stitches, so I have 32 on the front and 32 on the back, and everything is just, unless you're actually knitting across the stitches, everything is pretty secure. You know, there's no ends that anything's going to fall off, and also when I knit mine using magic loop, I can knit my German short row heel without having to include an extra needle or without having to kind of take anything off. So that's my preferred method, is magic loop. There are loads of tutorials out there for using magic loop for knitting your socks, and it is something that I might consider filming myself. Another very popular choice with sock knitters is DPNs or double pointed needles, and I mean, these are not just popular for sock knitting, are they, as with circular needles, but as the name suggests, they are double pointed, so they've got a point at each end. I'm not a massive fan of DPNs, and you can get DPNs in sets of 4 or sets of 5, so you can either have your stitches spread out over 4 needles and then you're using your 5th needle to knit, or you can have them spread out over 3 needles and you're using your 4th needle to knit. I haven't ever knitted a complete pair of socks using DPNs. I have knitted toys using DPNs. The problem that I have with DPNs is I just kind of find that there are too many bits and pieces going in too many different directions. I'm always terrified of dropping stitches. Laddering is not necessarily an issue for me in the join between, but there's just a bit too much going on for me, basically, with DPNs. However, if you are a DPN sock knitter and you were to purchase one of my patterns, which is written for magic loop, what I would suggest that you do is I would suggest that you use 3 DPNs to hold your stitches. So because you've got, as with my Bumblebee socks and with these socks, you have a stitch pattern across the front. What you don't want to have is you don't want to have the join between your needles in the middle of the stitch pattern. So what I would do is I would look at how many stitches are involved in your stitch pattern, how many stitches are between your markers, and then I would go to either side of that and have those stitches on 1 needle. And then I would split the rest of your stitches in half and put half on 1 needle and half on another needle. And then I would use stitch markers to denote where your divide between needle 1 and needle 2 should be. As I said, I use 64 stitches for my socks, so I have 32 on my front needle and 32 on my back needle. So you need to have some markers on your DPN somewhere showing you that, and obviously they need to be different markers from the markers that show you where your stitch pattern is. So you can convert that, you know, quite easily. You can use one pattern in another way. So that is DPNs, double pointed needles, and you know, I would encourage you to try them because you know, you don't know what's going to work best for you. And the other is a short circular needle. Now this is how I knitted my first pair of socks, but I also had to bring in a DPN when I was doing the heel flap on the first pair of socks that I knit. So a short circular needle. The problem that I have with these is they do make my fingers hurt because the needles are very, very short. Loads of people use these, and I know that you can get them with a shorter needle and a longer needle, which is less painful on your hands. And one of my test knitters knits all her socks on short circulars, and she's test knitted my socks for me, so you know, it's pretty simple. Again, you're going to have all your stitches on 1 needle, so if you've got 64 stitches there, you need to have a marker dividing them in half, as well as a marker to denote the beginning of your round if you were going to follow one of my patterns. So those are the 3 different types of needle that you can use for sock knitting, which I hope addresses in some way Tracy's question that she asked. As I say, I'm not a sock knitting expert. I'm not the, the authority on sock knitting. If you're looking for somebody that knows a lot more about socks, go and visit Winwick Mum. That would be a very good place to start. But, I knit my socks on Magic Loop. I can explain how and why I do what I do. And, if it's of interest to people who want to know about 2 at a time and how I manage my yarn, etc., then maybe I can do a tutorial about that. So I hope that was helpful for you, Tracy. And yeah, let me know if you have any questions that you would like me to address in this section of the podcast in future episodes. So I have no idea how long I've been talking for, because I've been pausing in between for the sunshine and the doorbell and all sorts of other things. But let's just go on to the chat / giveaway / make along / anything else that doesn't fit anywhere else section, shall we? So, I need to apologise, I think, because I have been running a make along for my Florence Bee, which was an English paper piecing kit that I put together in the summer, and I did a tutorial on this channel, which is still available, and you can go and see that. And it ended at the end of September, and because I haven't podcast since the end of September, I haven't drawn a winner. So I was running it on Ravelry and on Instagram, and thank you very much to everybody that entered. I combined the entries, I gave everybody a number, I asked for a random number to be generated online, and the winner is Alison, who is Oopsie Daisy Crochet. So well done, Alison. You are the winner of the Florence Bee make along. And what I have done for you, and I will get this out to you in the next week or so, is I have put together a little pack of scrap fabrics, which are, they're not like really tiny scraps, but which you can use in your English paper piecing or your patchwork projects. So I've put together a little kind of scrap pack for you, and I will get those out in the post to you. I do have your address because you ordered a kit from me. So yeah, if you can just get in touch with me and let me know that it's okay to send it to your address that I have for you, I'm sure it will be, then I will get those out to you. The Christmas gifts make along is still running. I'm running that with Angela from Knitting on the Farm, and I did my pig, didn't I? My Oliver pig, which I should actually post up somewhere on Ravelry, but I did that as part of that. And I'm also knitting my Medley Shawl. I've got a few other things that I need to be doing as Christmas gifts. And so the idea is that if you are knitting or crocheting or doing anything involving yarn or wool, that you post it in Angela's Ravelry group. And if you're doing anything else, sewing based stuff generally, then post in my group. I've really enjoyed looking at all of your projects on Ravelry, and I've switched off Chatter for the thread because I just think it's a little bit too complicated, but I am going through and kind of hearting everything, and I've enjoyed seeing those. There's quite a few Christmas decorations, tree decorations that I've seen. There was a beautiful quilt, a frozen quilt that Diane has done, which was beautiful, and Diane was so kind, and she had a spare panel which she has sent to me, and I'm going to be using that to make a gift for Eloise for Christmas, and I will show you that in another episode. Thank you, Diane, that was really generous of you. So yeah, have fun with that. We're really kind of getting into gift making season now, aren't we? So continue to pop your entries into the Ravelry group, or you can use the hashtag, which I'll pop on the bottom of the screen, the Instagram hashtag, which I think is Christmas Gifts Mal 2020, yeah, we'll be drawing prizes for those. The Time to Zweig is still going on, so again, you can use the Instagram hashtag for that, or you can post in the Ravelry group, and prizes will be drawn from that, and that's running until the end of October, so yeah, at some point we will draw prizes thereafter. And the other thing I wanted to mention was my 1,000 subscriber giveaway. So before, sorry, I may have moved slightly. My husband is working from home but came in to basically interrupt. How rude. Anyway, I just wanted to talk about my 1,000 subscriber giveaway. So on the last episode, I said that I'd hit 1,000 subscribers, which is just mad, and it's already gone up again. And yeah, it's lovely to think that so many of you are watching and enjoying the podcast, and I'm really, really grateful to all of you for your support. And I want to do a giveaway for 1,000 subscribers. But what I thought I would do, partly because I've got a lot of things on, and I've also got other kind of make-alongs and giveaways going on at the moment, and also because I thought it would just be a nice way to kind of give somebody a gift during gift giving season, is I'm going to put together a little bit of a Christmas gift package as the giveaway prize. Now, it's not necessarily going to be Christmas themed, although there might be some slightly festive themed things in there. But I'm going to put together like a little sort of, I don't know, a Christmas box, a Christmas parcel. I had thought about doing some sort of advent calendar this year, and then, you know, things just ran away with me, and I decided not to. But I do quite fancy doing something a little bit like that. So maybe like a little bit of a 12 days box or something. So I'm going to put something together, and I'm going to launch that probably in the next episode, and we'll work out how you can enter and things like that. So yeah, look out for that coming in the next episode. There will be some handmade things in there. There might be some yarn in there. I might go and make a couple of purchases from some other makers to kind of, you know, share the love around a little bit. So I'm going to put together a little Christmas box for somebody to win. And it'll be a worldwide thing. You can enter wherever you are in the world. So I will do that in the next episode. So I think that's it today. I hope this has been okay. I hope it hasn't been boring. I hope it hasn't been all over the place. I hope that you have found what I've talked about interesting and useful. I hope that you've enjoyed seeing my projects, and yeah, I hope you don't mind the new format. If I stick to the old format, I know that I'm not going to end up showing you stuff, or I'm not going to end up podcasting, because I'm not going to have enough things to show you that fit into that format. And I know it's just going to become like a shop window really for my patterns, and that's not what I want. I want to share those with you, and I love the sense of community that we have as a result of me doing that. But I also want to be able to share other things, and, you know, rather than just, I think part of it is because I'm also on a journey with learning about knitting and different things. You know, as I'm working on different projects, different things occur to me that I might want to mention to you. And, you know, so for example, today, even though, you know, it appears that I've just become obsessed with Libby Jonson's patterns, I wanted to share the fact that, you know, those are the most well-written or the best written patterns that I have come across, because it's helpful for all of you to know that. So yeah, I hope that you enjoyed watching. I hope that you're keeping safe and well, and fingers crossed I will see you again sooner than the last time, if that makes sense. Thank you for watching. Bye bye.